look so good, Jordan. Yeah.
I like your haircut. You look so cute.
I need to show me I look straight.
How was your date?
Oh my god, you heard about it on the...
I know,
I was so flabbergasted. I was so
because he was just
shocked.
so weird.
He was
So what was weird about him? Right. No, not like in a bad way, but like I was wondering what was so weird that you kept saying like he was
He
weird.
likes to like humiliate people. Like he likes to like go up to strangers and like fuck with them. He's just really weird. But I kind of like. Are you live right now? Oh.
There's only one person watching. Okay, good.
So what is this? Like a microphone is recording all the time? It's on live. Are we on live right now?
But Ashley's the only one watching.
That's so hilarious. He was like, how was your day? Oh my god, this is so funny. It's kind of really cracking up. I didn't make me like, I just remember being here freshman year, and this was what made me enjoy the team. And I just feel like freshman year, so it's nice that I think, these people not ready. They not ready. They not ready. Oh, they not ready.
Yeah, I saw that. Let's see your thing.
I never got a program.
I just want to look at it real quick.
Wait, go wait to the front. Okay. Will you sign here?
Yeah. Thank you.
Nobody wants to set up with you guys, huh?
I know.
But we have to be quiet. I know.
Oh. We could turn it around.
At the end, at the very end, when the last performer,
The whole time. I'm like,
I wish it was a way we could have like another little like screen. Also, our reaction for a vlog. Just throughout the performances. With the pocket. It just been screaming. Actually, I didn't think. Just kidding. Wait, what's that? Like that time. You can already.
here like verbally shitpost.
How are you?
Even so.
Yeah, I wanna. You know what? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I look like April.
Oh, you look beautiful always.
All right, everyone. Thank you for coming out to show one of the speech team. If you're here for extra credit, you'll notice you have a program, and in that you have a sheet of paper, right? Make sure you fill out your name, circle the performance you like best, say why, and then write your instructor's name. If you have me for large lecture, do not write store, put your small section instructor. If you have Moore or Coker, right, go ahead and put them down. Or if you have a different instructor, put that individual's name down. If you happen to have multiple of us, you have me for large lecture, but you also have Professor Moore, go ahead and write both, and I'll make sure that these slips of paper get to the appropriate professor. Questions on that? Okay, that's how we're going to do that. Just hand them to us on the way out, and we'll be good to go. So, as I said, this is the first showcase of the speech team, the 5:30 show. A little bit about the speech team. We're pretty good, right? We got 7th in the nation last year. We would have liked better, but it is what it is. So we work all year practicing speeches. So some of the speeches you'll see tonight are just 5 of the numerous ones. Somewhere probably around 80 different events we'll take to the national tournament, which is out in California this year. Sounds fun, but it's really expensive. So we're like, how are we going to get there? So we'll figure that out. But we've got 5 performances for you. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with the first one. It's going to be a prose interpretation. So this is kind of a more like acting-esque event. What it is, it's a short story. It's a cutting from a short story. They'll perform this, ideally as the character. They're going to shut the book at one point, give you an introduction to contextualize the piece. But some of these events, the interpretation ones specifically, are going to be performed with this black book. Don't ask why, it's just the rules. It's how it goes. So, our first performance is a sophomore from Indianapolis doing a prose interpretation, Richard Bowman.
I was born and raised in Oakland, California. Now, my father got around a lot. Now, when I was about 10 years old and my parents were still together, he gathered us all in the living room and was like, all right, now I've got to tell y'all something. Everybody's been saying I've had a baby by another woman. His name is Tony. He's a little bit older than y'all, but he's on the front porch right now. Let's go meet him. You see, my brother Tony was a little bit older than I was, but he already knew who he was. I mean, he walked right in and was like, hi, it's nice to meet you all. Whose dolls are those? I want to play with those dolls. Now, is that the Barbie slumber party set or is that the Barbie camper set? You see, my brother Tony played whatever he wanted to play with. I mean, he wanted to play hopscotch and double dutch, and he was amazing at double dutch, okay? I mean, the way he get those 2 ropes going, singing all these crazy nursery rhymes, Abraham Lincoln was a good old man. He fell out of the window with his thing in his hand. He said, "Honey, lady, I'm doing my duty. Just pull on your drawers and give me some booty. Speed up, speed up, speed up. My back is breaking, my belt's too tight, my hips are shaking. I'm Yawa. And she stayed. I miss my brother Tony. Relationships between LGBT individuals and their biological families have undergone a significant change in American society. However, the article, African American Families and Diversity, Gay Men and Lesbians and Family Networks, notes that minority groups in America are more likely to view homosexuality as antithetical to issues of preserving the family. However, with one brush, we cannot paint a whole people. In the following, Don Reed details his struggles with acceptance, but comes to realize that acceptance isn't a destination. It's a continuous journey. I Miss Tony by Don Reed. When I was 16 years old, my parents finally got divorced, but every Sunday I'd go over to my father's house. Now, whenever I go over there, there was always this huge party going on. Now, my father always told me to be myself, but I wanted to be cool. But I wasn't cool. I was a nerd. But Tony was cool. Tony would be there in the center of the party, powerfully gay, dancing his ass off, just bam, 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 bam. Ooh, I love coming over to Daddy's house. You know why? Because Daddy don't judge me. Let me be myself. But you know what? I might have to same over here because my mama busted me. Busted you? What was you doing? Smoking some weed? I was smoking something. Then what were you doing? Boy, you is so naive. You is hella naive, boy. I'm sorry, are you trying to say the word naive? Whatever it is, however you spell it, that's what you is. You see, eventually me and all my brothers moved over to my father's house. But one day I'm standing at the bus stop when these two big dudes walked up. And the big guy said, "Hey, you one of the Reed brothers, right? Well, you see, your brother Daryl got with my girl, so now we got to get with you." And I'm thinking, what's that got to do with me? But then I heard Tony's footsteps. You see, they didn't know it was about to happen, but I did. But then the guy said, "What you gonna do, faggot?" Tony went right to work on both of them. Now, let me tell you something about Tony. Tony would use whatever he had in his artillery. Biting, scratching, the windmill move. You see, I'm sure if you slowed it down just enough, it would look like some high-class martial art type shit. Just... You see, Tony always had my back. And he always protected me. He really did have my back. But one day, I went down to the lake with my buddies, and everybody was there. And my buddy looks over and says, "Look, there's your brother Tony." And he was about to honk the horn. But then I said, no. Don't call him over here, okay? Just don't call him over here. And I let Tony walk by. That was not cool. Not cool at all. I mean, when I got home that night, I couldn't even look him in the eye, but he said, "Your hair is looking crazy, boy. Do you want me to braid your hair?" So I sat down with my back against his knees as he braided my hair. You see, he would braid my hair and we would talk. But that night we didn't talk. When I was 18 years old, Tony moved out and I hadn't seen him for about 2 years. But then one day I'm standing at the bus stand after a night of partying, and across the streets I see Tony in a blonde wig, a brown dress, off-white heels. I mean, I'd seen Tony wear women's clothing before, but never out in public. I don't know. I guess I was feeling embarrassed or something. I don't know. I guess I was ready for him to be gay, but I wasn't ready for this. So I said, "Hey, Tony, what are you doing?" "I'm working." "Well, do you have to do this? I mean, can't you get some other job?" "It's not that easy, Donnie. People get freaked out by women like me." And in that moment, something happened. I mean, my spine straightened up, and then I wasn't feeling embarrassed. I mean, all I wanted to do was protect her. So I said, "Look, Tony, let's get something to eat. Can we get something to eat?" "I can't, Donnie. I have to work. I need the money. I'll give you some money, okay?" I'll give you some money, I'll get you a room, just let's get something to eat, and can we talk? Can we just talk? So we ate, and we talked, and she braided my hair. And then I said goodnight. I don't know what happened later that night. All I know is that they found Tony behind a junior high school, face down, in a blonde wig. She did not deserve that. She deserved much, much better than that. And you know, I wish I could have been there to protect her the way she protected me all those years, but you know, I can still hear her say, "Whose dolls are those over there in the corner?" I miss my sister, Tony.
The next presentation, for those of you in 210, this one you're probably like, what is that? I've never seen a speech like that before. This next one is going to be a little more familiar to you. It is going to be an informative speech. Okay, so it's going to be a little more familiar to you, something that you're probably more used to seeing. So a freshman, is it Chanahan or how do you say it? Chanahan. A freshman from Chanahan, Illinois, doing informative, Amelia Brewer.
About angry women lately. Take, for example, Senator Ben Sasse, who described the female protest at Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing as unfounded hysteria, a statement to which Senator Kamala Harris criticized. Or consider Psychology Today on September 8th, 2018, who asked, was Serena being hysterical after she confronted her umpire for receiving unfair penalties? Hysteria, the mental illness attributed to women in the 1600s, being used to describe women in 2018? Of course. The aforementioned Psychology Today reminds us that hysterical refers to a woman's dysfunctional behavior, not a man's, even today. This idea that women's emotions are different than men's has been around for centuries. Just as women today, women of the past were subjected to the notion of being hysterical simply for expressing their feelings. Yet Amy Kober's 2018 book, From Hysteria to Hormones, suggests a medical understanding around the history of women's emotions can help us better understand women's bodies and the ways in which we talk about them. In fact, Kober cites historians crediting the discovery of hormones with reducing the notion of women suffering from hysteria, and suggests that most scholars believe it was the scientific advancement that enhanced medical care for women. However, given the connotative similarities, one may consider hormones a replacement for hysteria, rather than a reduction of it. So today, we will take a look at this medical understanding by first discussing hysteria, then its successor hormones, before finally taking a look at the impact of our need to explain women's uncontrollable emotions. After all, best-selling doctor Dr. Sears reminds us, to control one's hormones is to control one's life. Well, at least if you're a woman. The myth of vagina dentata vaginas with teeth dates back to ancient times, appearing in folklore everywhere, from Russia to India to Japan. It was believed that men couldn't have sex with their wives for the risk of castration. So extremely brave men were needed to remove the teeth to tame women and make them sexually viable. As we look at the past, we'll examine the abstract conceptions of what the womb entailed and how that related to hysteria. For a long time, a woman's worth was chalked up to her reproductivity. In turn, a lot of medical focus was geared towards the womb. According to Dr. Shanaj George in the Dalhousie Medical Journal in the spring of 2018, the ancient Greeks and Romans believed in the concept of the wandering womb, which was the idea that the uterus, much like an animal, would move around the womb causing various problems. Though not all physicians believed this, most agreed that the uterus was capable of causing bodily harm, unless filled by pregnancy, menstruation, or a male appendage. Eventually, the wandering womb was replaced with a diagnosis, that of hysteria. The 2017 book Hysteria Today explains that Hippocrates coined the term hysterin, meaning movement of the uterus, to interpret the origins of women's health problems. As hysteria gained popularity, treatment became widespread, such as spraying women's stomachs with powerful jets of water, or using orgasm-inducing machines. Vibrators. While these beliefs were replaced with other sciences, hysterical neurosis wasn't taken out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders until 1994. A 13th century medical text noted that menstruating women give off harmful fumes that could poison the eyes of children lying in their cradles by a glance. Though science changed the way we talk about women, the reason we talk about women stayed the same, providing a simple shift in terminology. This shift from hysteria, explaining women's emotions, to a more sophisticated understanding, aka hormones, can be traced back to two specific moments. The first being a chicken testicle study, and the second being the introduction of the term hormone. First, the chickens. An 1848 study of male chickens was the first scientific study related to hormones, though they didn't know it was hormones at the time. Boston's Public Radio on September 17, 2018 explains that in the mid-1800s, medical scientists were interested in testicles. They often wondered how they worked. Could a testicle do its job if it were placed somewhere else? Did they contain vital juices?
Oh.
To answer these questions, Arnold Berthold cut off one testicle in a group of chickens, then chopped off both testicles in another group of chickens, before finally implanting a random chicken testicle inside the intestinal loops of a third group. The results? Well, the chickens with one testicle overcompensated and became super macho. The chickens with no testicles became lazy. And those with the gonads switched. The rooster behaved normally. The chicken autopsy led to the conclusion that it was a substance in the blood vessels of the chicken, rather than a nerve between the testicles, that explained why the chicken behaved this way. It took another 50 years before Ernest Starling named this substance hormones. The introduction of the term hormone in 1905 opened a whole new world of research for sex differences that was based off of glands, rather than the mythical and spiritual understanding which had dominated the medical community. This discovery is regularly considered a turning point for women, as it provided a tangible explanation for female emotions. However, Amy Kober explains in her previously cited 2018 book that instead of one disease, hysteria, with many different causes, we see a situation in which there are many different diseases, but only one possible cause: hormones. Harvard Medical School physician Dr. Edward H. Clark published a book in 1876 in which he concluded that the sum of energy in a body is constant. In the case of a woman, this meant that studying in college could transfer all of her energy from her reproductive organs to her brain. Works for me. The medical path from hysteria to hormones provides two important implications: our persistent need to explain women, and the rhetorical responsibility of doctors. First, scientists will tell you that hormones control everything, for women and men. Randy Hutter Epstein's 2018 book, Aroused, The History of Hormones and How They Control Just About Everything, explains that despite hormones' importance in every major bodily function, we only consider them for both genders during puberty. However, the phrase hormonal woman remains ever present. It has been established that a hormonal woman is someone who is emotional, horny, hungry, and probably someone that you don't want to deal with. And while hormones can in fact cause women and men to be all of these, it's the way society has shaped this image of a hormonal woman that leads to the discrediting of a woman's genuine thoughts and feelings. Suggesting that women are held captive by either their womb or their hormones is at the root of denying women agency. This rhetorical practice led to people literally asking, should someone who menstruates have access to the nuclear codes? If being emotionally stable is what it takes to preside in the White House, then we made a mistake. Finally, the doctors who understand the complex science have a responsibility and blame for the gendered nature of how we talk about hormones. Take, for example, a new mother who recalls giving birth in a New York Times article on June 2nd, 2018. She describes the doctor telling the nurse to write down, "Mother is hormonal," in her medical records because she refused to have blood drawn on her newborn child. Now, the mother's progesterone had plummeted as she had just given birth, and her oxytocin had skyrocketed because she was nursing, but that's not what the doctor meant when she used the word hormonal. All of the examples in this speech that seem ridiculous when talking about women come from doctors. When looked under a microscope 50 years from now, might today's physician stereotypes or WebMD's image of a hormonal woman or women's health articles on PMS also seem ridiculous? The prevalence of hormones today compares to the prevalence of hysteria in the past. Both surround our urge to explain women and their emotions. After discussing hysteria, then hormones, we have discovered the implications this medical narrative continues to have on our language and ideology. Both Serena Williams and Kamala Harris responded strongly to the term hysterical, either in reference to themselves or to other women, and a recent survey of the names women most hate being called found hormonal as the most derogatory. Despite all of the medical breakthroughs, it's clear that the lack of societal progress remains.
All right, Kay, do you want to step out? Okay, so before the show, I had some people write down on a piece of paper their favorite quotations or phrases. Okay, so what this next speech is, it's going to be impromptu. So Kay will have about 1.5 to 2 minutes to prepare a 5-minute presentation based on one of these. So we're going to vote. I'm going to tell you what they are first, read them all to you, and then we're going to vote. The first one is, "Get in, loser, we're shopping." No, we're going shopping, from Regina George. This says, "Before I tell a lie, I won't tell you nothing," from Future Hendrix. Is that how you say that? "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take," Wayne Gretzky. Or, "People in LA are deathly afraid of gluten. I swear to God, you could rob 2 liquor stores in this city with a bagel."
That's pretty good.
Show of hands. Who wants "Get in, loser, we're going shopping"? Okay, who wants "Before I tell a lie, I won't tell you nothing"? Okay, we want the bagel one, is that what we're doing? Show of hands if you want the bagel!
I think he's gonna laugh. Because it's so long. I know that I was like, as soon as
The only reason she'll be upset is because it's a long quotation.
All right, so Kate, your quotation's over there. I'll give you type signals from over here. So, senior from Jasper, Indiana, Kate Heaton.
Come on, please. Go.
Time starts. Seconds. One minute. $130.
I'm not Korean, nor do I know a whole lot about Korea. But if you don't know a lot about Korea, one fun thing to look up on the internet is the variety of folklore that exists within the country. Most notably, the fear that is present within South Korean society that leaving a running fan on in your room overnight while you sleep will literally kill you. This isn't true. I've tried it. It hasn't worked. I'm still here. This is a very real fear in Korean society. But anthropologists studying this matter found that there's actually a dark truth to the matter. You see, suicide is incredibly common among South Korean society, but the society has such an incredible stigma over the acts of depression or suicide that when a family member were to take their own life, rather than admit what had happened, the family obfuscates the reality by pointing at the desk fan. Now, that's a hard way to get out of a tough situation, and it hasn't gotten me out of many situations. But if I'm ever looking to rob a bank in LA, I might have a new strategy. Because according to Ryan Reynolds, people in Los Angeles are deathly afraid of gluten. I swear to God, you could rob a liquor store in this city with a bagel. Now, what Ryan Reynolds is saying is absolutely true. But there's a deeper truth to this meaning. You see, what the people in LA are deathly afraid of isn't exactly gluten, it's unhealthiness, the package that comes with it. Ryan Reynolds is simply commenting to us that our real fears manifest strangely. The people in Los Angeles are afraid of weight gain, unhealthy, poor complexion. Those things then summed up is gluten. We'll look at this for two reasons. The first of which is that we are more than capable of substituting our own version of truth. And the second is that obfuscating the truth can help us deal with things. I've never robbed a store. I've eaten bagels. Neither of those are related, but I could theoretically substitute that truth, make up my own story to benefit myself in this situation. I wouldn't do that to you, though. The first reason we understand that our real fears will manifest themselves in strange ways is because we often substitute the truth for our own version. We'll look at this for two examples. The first is the mandrake root, and the second is coded language. For those of you who are fans of Harry Potter, you're probably familiar with the mandrake root. It's a little plant that when you root it out of the ground, it screams a whole lot, much like me. The mandrake root is actually a very real plant, and its popularity in folklore stems from the fact that it does look a whole lot like a human person. But the reality was that medieval alchemists looking at the mandrake root noticed that it had medicinal properties. But rather than acumen the actual forces at work, the chemicals within it that had healing properties, They instead said, well, that's a people. If we add this people to our people, it helps people. This is not the truth of the matter. But instead, our need to rationalize it meant that they had to come up with a reason. So rather than developing the scientific method, medieval alchemists simply said that because the mandrake root had the human form, it could heal people, substituting the actual truth for something that could help them. We'll also look at this through the example of coded language. There's ways of saying things in certain words that mean things that they wouldn't normally. For instance, when I go to my mom and say, that's lit, she's A, confused, and B, wondering why I'm home. Just speak in ways that we don't normally want to communicate. This is a process of substituting truth all the same. In our original example of Ryan Reynolds and the bagel that robbed the liquor store, gluten is a substituted truth for real fears. But instead of dealing with the actual depressing images of body image and health epidemics in the United States, we come up with a new villain, gluten. It's silly, it's simple, and easily digestible, showing us that we can substitute our truth, and that allows us to realize that our real fears might manifest themselves in strange ways. I am, like, deathly afraid of aliens. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, the little gray-eyed guys with the big eyes and stuff. I have no idea why. My friends think I've been abducted. I think I actually just have a very real fear that people are watching me when I sleep because I snore awfully. We understand, then, that our real fears manifesting themselves in strange ways often occur because they're obfuscating the harsh reality of the situation, making it easier for us to deal with these fears. We'll look at this with the examples of escapism and author Terry Pratchett. Escapism is the general process of finding enjoyment in pretending the world isn't quite the way it is. If you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons, watched a movie, listened to music, in many ways we're using these mediums to convince ourselves that there is a world other than our own. But in many cases, this is often healthy. Psychiatrists have begun using escapist methods, like Dungeons & Dragons, to help trauma patients better cope with the very real victimization they experience in their lives. Taking the truth of the situation, obfuscating it, and translating it into a more palatable form so that real progress can be made in acumening and understanding those truths within. This is because we are able to obfuscate the real truths, but still pull actual progress out of them. When people in LA are afraid of gluten, they're afraid of gaining weight or being unhealthy. But obfuscating it as gluten becomes shorthand for that, avoiding a thing and feeling like you've made progress. Author Terry Pratchett practiced escapism in a very wonderful way that had a kind of tragic end. You see, Terry Pratchett was a fantasy author who was unfortunately diagnosed with a terminal form of cancer. So what he did in response was begin a process of self-euthanasia, essentially taking a chemical cocktail, bit by bit, that would eventually kill him. Pratchett essentially committed suicide voluntarily to avoid the horrible degenerative effects of his disease. But when asked why he did so, he said he would intentionally hide the dosage that was taking it, so he wouldn't know how close he was to the final end that he was willfully walking into, giving him the illusion and the ability to enjoy his life with the freedom that every single one of us do today. Obfuscating the truth to come up with a very real form of progress, showing us that when we obfuscate the truth, sometimes it makes it easier for us to digest it, even if we don't always acknowledge it as such. So when we return to today's quotation from Ryan Reynolds, people in LA are deathly afraid of gluten. I swear to God, you could rob a liquor store in this city with a bagel. We understand that Ryan Reynolds is commenting to us that our real fears, be it of gluten, be it of aliens, be it of looking like an idiot in front of all these people who came to watch you speak, will manifest themselves in strange ways. And there's two reasons we agreed with this. The first of which is that we are more than capable of substituting our own form of truth. And the second is that we can often obfuscate the truth to make it easier for us to understand. I don't plan to go to LA anytime soon, but if I'm there, I'm sure as hell going to try to rob a liquor store with a bagel.
Woo-woo! Yeah!
All right, our next performance is going to be a program oral interpretation. What this is you take literature, you can find anywhere, it can be stories, articles, poems, theatrical works, movies, pretty much anything you find, and you smash it all together to form some type of argument. It's the best way to explain this. Yeah, that's what it is. So she's going to be playing multiple different characters. Hopefully you can follow along, but it all has a central theme to it. So, doing program oral interpretation from Mokina, Illinois, sophomore Grace Paczynski.
Alrighty, everybody, sit down, have a seat, sit down! Okie dokie. Well, look at here, it looks like we have some new members with us here today. Guess I better introduce myself then, huh? Hi, I'm Helen, and I have lived in this great city of Troy all my life. And I am the proud founder of the WD. What would white women do? After reading a recent editorial piece about white women using crying as a weapon against being held accountable, 31-year-old Katie Williamson broke down in tears. Attacking white women, and I can't even try to understand why. All I know is that I feel really, really, really attacked right now. And I don't know why they're doing this to me. Look, over there. Look, it's the elusive white woman. And she's going to call the police. Hello? Yeah, these flowers over here are illegally drinking my water. Listen, she's going to call the police. Again. Hi, yep, this dog now. Yeah, this black dog is illegally drinking my water. Now he's following me. He won't leave me alone. Oh, now he's taking a shit right in front of me. She's going to call the police. Again. Okay, this toilet now is illegally drinking my water. And now he's laughing at me. Hey, you, stop laughing at me. So, as some of you may know, there is a warrant out for my arrest right now. I wrote the police department a very strongly worded email, and it said, hello, this is Helena Troy. I heard that there is a warrant out for my arrest. Can you please tell me why? I want to be a peaceful, law-abiding citizen, but I've had it. No. We have had it. I don't want to see another black boy. Enters a grocery store. Black boy is a weapon. Black boy is weaponized. In the 2018 book, White Fragility, there's a chapter entitled White Women's Tears. Author Robin DiAngelo notes that white women like Barbecue Betty and Permit Patty strategically used crying to try and silence the legitimate grievances of people of color. DiAngelo also notes that these tears often push race off the table, helping them control conversations, all the while reasserting our privileged dominance. As white women, we need to recognize that the violence against black and brown body is not always physical. Our tears are weapons. They are bullets, and they continue to take lives. So today, through the poetry White Lies by Teen Philadelphia, the prose, White Women Crying over an article about white women crying, Dear White Women, Why We Need to Stop Crying, and the drama Helena Troy by Cynthia Thomas. A program. Because our tears are a dangerous splash in the cocktail of white supremacy. So, I am a white woman. I know us, I love us, and I understand us. But boy, have we perfected the art of crying like no other. Me included. Look, if you've experienced trauma or you have perceived trauma, well, you're going to cry. But you can be traumatized and still oppress. Well, you can be traumatized and still pay that trauma forward. And you see, this is what we are doing and what we continue to do every time somebody tries to call us out. The writer is saying that white women are using their emotions to try to avoid taking responsibility for their words and actions. And it's really aggressive for her to just target one specific demographic like that. I mean, sorry. I'm just getting really emotional right now. I'm gonna need a moment. I mean, she is harassing me. In 1955, Carolyn Bryant justified Emmett Till's death by claiming harassment. 60 years later, his bones still lie in the casket. His mother's body is now showered with dirt. 60 years later, Carolyn Bryant confesses to being a liar. As if we didn't already know. Now, I don't want any violence, but you see, I am terrified that some of them are going to try and hurt us. We've seen it happen before, haven't we? Does everybody remember Carol? Carol, yes. You see, all she did was call the police because her neighbors, who just happens to be black, were watering their lawns, even though they knew that we were in a water ban. And Kelly, God bless her soul, it was 7 p.m. And her neighbors, who just happened to be black, were playing their music at 7 p.m. Oh my goodness! And they were so goddamn aggressive that they made Kelly cry. I'm not trying to avoid taking responsibilities for my own actions. I think that the writer could get her point across without making white women cry. If she had stopped being so hostile. I know that I'm really upset right now because she was really, really mean and hurt my feelings. I'm just gonna go cry in the bathroom for a little bit, okay? So, white women, why are we crying? Are we crying because our ancestors have been relentlessly cruel towards marginalized people? Well, then do something about it. Do something other than periodically siphoning off your own white guilt. Carolyn Bryant, she painted her nails with Emmett Till's blood, felt her tongue heavy enough to pull a black boy under the current. Carolyn Bryant knows innocence like the sound of a snapping neck, or only knows accountability as distant cousin. Where the truth will bring her clear conscience, only it misses getting away with murder. Will she beg for clemency in return for her courage to confess? It's too late. Carolyn Bryant murdered Emmett Till. Now, I don't want us to place blame on anybody here, but I don't think people quite understand the type of situation we are in right now. I mean, we have done everything we can to be good and peaceful citizens and try to make sure that there is no violence in our great city of Troy, but they won't stop. They won't stop filming us, they won't stop harassing us, calling us racist, following us, they won't stop. They keep treating us like the enemy, and you know what? We are not the enemy. They're calling us racist, but we are not racist. We have done everything by the book to address our grievances. We are being fucking assaulted, people! So, as Helen of Troy, as your leader, I say that we launch 1,000 ships and we're going to burn this great city to the ground! White women at age 21 is innocent. White women at age 85 is fragile, but the black man is always broken at her touch. Black man yesterday is shattered by her scream. Black man today is shred to pieces at the sight of her, because who will live to rebuke her? She will point a finger with blood still in her hand, say she is frail, but she has crushed more beneath her feet than her cane can support. Carolyn Bryant is alive and well. She is named Dorothy or Madeline or Eleanor, but never a murderer. Carolyn Bryant thinks that she can speak her sins out of existence, thinks that she can erase the whistle unheard around the world. White women are the only ones who can be murderers and still remain faultless. So white women, why are we crying? Are you crying because you discovered that our present world is far shittier and more abusive than you thought? Are you crying because you are far shittier and more abusive than you thought? Well, cry away. But not in the presence of people of color. They know the truth already. Do not beg them for forgiveness. That is not their job. And when you stop crying, rally yourself. You're stronger than you think. You're not a child anymore. You're not powerless. You see, now is the time for us to grow up, grow better, and stop your own cycle of abuse. We want call-outs. We need call-outs. How gracious it is for them to take their time to try and teach us.
Is going to be a duo interpretation. So it's also going to be it can be a single script, or you can do a program duo, and that's kind of what we're going to do here. So it's going to look similar to Grace's, but it's going to be two people side by side. They're going to use offstage vocals. They don't really touch each other. They can't look at each other. Again, don't ask questions. It's just the rules of the competition. So giving a duo interpretation is going to be freshman from Bloomington Normal, Illinois, Natalie Thomason, and senior from Noblesville, Indiana, Lily Schwab.
Woo! Come on, lady. Oh my God.
Sisters, bring me the book. Whatever shall we do with him?
Hang him on hook and let me play with him!
No! Why was I cursed with such idiot sisters? No, no. His punishment must be more fulsome, more lingering.
Next, we visit the story of two men thrown from a bridge. They were the alleged rapists of a 13-year-old girl who took her own life by jumping in front of a speeding train.
The goddess, City, stood too close to her memories and his funeral pyre. The sun set as they dragged her to a distance.
Wrapped in armor of white Kari, she confronted the fire.
Oh, hi! Didn't see you there.
Hi!
We've been awfully occupied with all these vases to fill with bones.
And all these puppies to knit sweaters for!
That's not an evil witch thing.
That's just freaking cute! But mostly, we've been preparing for
Our next hunt. Let's see, amnesia, bunions, chilblains, cholera. We can do better than that. No, no. His punishment shall not be to die.
No.
But to live forever with his gift.
As what when he has what?
Jump back. Twist the bones and bend the back. Ita da capita melica mystica. Trim him of his baby fat. Ita da capita melica mystica. Just
Like this. It now seems these two men's deaths may have been an act of revenge by a new terrorist organization known as Jennifer. The question now is, who is Jennifer?
In 2018, you don't have to be a woman to find something to be angry about. But if you are a woman, chances are you're feeling immense rage.
After all, our government is working to strip us of our reproductive rights, and we find ourselves buried in a climate in which men guilty of sexual harassment and assault can still gain power.
And when we voice our legitimate concerns and call foul, we are accused of being on a witch hunt. So through the drama, Dietland by Marty Noxon, Hocus Pocus by Mick Garris.
The poetry, Waiting to Self-Emulate by Archana Sridhar, Witch Hunt by Samantha Healy. Yes, this is a witch hunt by Dorothy McGinnis.
And the prose Rage by Audra Alexander.
Because if they insist,
A witch hunt. We are witches.
And we're hunting you.
You see, we recently took down Mr. Weinstein and
You should have heard of Harvey Squid!
Tell them how they squeal. Tell them. Oink, oink. Drink in the chatter of Nassar's quaking bones. I do think a human centipede of them will make an excellent replacement for my bear skin, no?
Yes, ass to mouth.
What you don't realize is we witches have been keeping spells of your wrongdoings for centuries.
You've just mistaken them as schoolgirl gossip.
But when the apple strikes the arrow,
When Eve strangles the snake,
when the rifle lands and you are nothing more than a shadow of repentance,
crunched under the weight of 1,000 witches' boots, then
you'll know. Here, take it.
I've never touched a gun before. It's heavy.
Look, you better be the real deal or I'm gonna have to put a bullet in you.
So who is he?
Mako Vespucci. He raped 4 women in Afghanistan, and every day he pays to have sex with an 11-year-old girl in that building. Aim for his chest.
What? I can't.
Look, do you want to be in Jennifer? This is what we do. Another goddess of self-sacrifice stepped up to the blaze,
Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford.
silently repeating her own name. Her unspoken truth self-evident, she stood and waited. The women of the world sweating, shaking. The village council gathered for a final vote. They demanded she came for patrimony's harmony, for their power to last another day.
The all-female terrorist organization Jennifer released a manifesto stating,
If you choose not to comply with these demands immediately, we will continue exposing and punishing all perpetrators of rape. There will be blood.
they also released this video.
My name is Hal, and I deserve to die. We lied and said she was a prostitute who was 19. We knew she was 13.
My name is Malik Ferguson. I drugged and sexually assaulted 31 women and girls, and I deserve to die. I deserve to die. I deserve...
Accountability is my finest spell, and you will fear it. Where you were once a werewolf howling at the moon, now you're nothing more than a femur in my face.
Feel the grime I scrape from my cauldron.
Look, the flicker of torches.
Look, your sweat drips as you dash away.
Look. You can't escape. Interesting, this fear of being vulnerable.
Interesting, the idea of being weak.
Interesting how you feel so helpless, so womanly. This anger, it's so authentic, so real. I mean, women have been angry a long time. So is it really so surprising that after all of the abuse, we are fighting back now with deadly force instead of just words?
A girl blew up a football team. Some Jennifer Coed just walked into a locker room with a bomb strapped to her fucking chest.
Every woman talks about revenge.
I don't. It leads to anarchy. You and your radical ideas, your poisonous eye for an eye.
Bullshit! Don't get sanctimonious with me.
Violence is never the answer.
Then what do you think is going to make lasting change, huh? What changes things is power. Those who have it and how they use it.
But this won't be the tipping point. There won't be a tipping point. There never is.
There will just be the subterranean lava flow of women's anger.
The anger will shift. Seismic but unseen.
Before, the lava used to burn us to ash on the inside. It's bubbling over now.
It is going to cover the earth and bury you. Petrified ash, fossil, frozen in a rictus of agony in the new Pompeii.
Crowds gather!
Dr. Ford.
And a time is set to pin her body down under a blood-red rising moon. Both women take a single step and freeze.
The men of the world salivate for seared flesh.
Dr. Ford! Dr. Ford! The women of the world cover their ears. Dr. Ford! Dr. Ford! And feel the rising heat of flames singe their memories into ash. But we are women, Wicca women. women! The witch in town forcing ash down his throat, making him choke.
Girls, this is where you stop hushing your hurt. This is where you worship your womanhood.
This is where you dance and dance and dance and dance, not under his moonlight, but in your own resilience.
Rebirth yourself into the wrath of this world. Come out chanting, come out kicking, come out and say,
I am not scared of you. You are scared of me. As the leader of Jennifer, I will tell you why we do what we do. My daughter was raped, and I tried to help her. But all she could feel was my anger. She was only 13. And people still called her trash. She threw herself in front of a train. And so we found those guys. And we threw them off that bridge. And then I got to thinking, those assholes can't be the only ones who deserve to pay for what they did.
Speech team. We have auditions at the beginning of the year, every school year. So if this was something that you enjoyed tonight, we'd love to talk to you and get your name and your information. We can tell you more about our program. We appreciate all of you coming tonight and being such a good audience and, you know, dealing with the weather. Make sure you have your information accurate on your score sheet, on your ballot, and have a good night. Thanks so much.
Oh.